Hello, my young readers, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome. We have a great story in store for you guys today, and it's going to be with Thomas, our favorite train. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Stay tuned. The name of this story is called King of the Railway, The Lost Crown of Sodor. This is part of the Thomas and Friends series. Enjoy. It was a busy day at Brindam Docks. Thomas and Percy were shunting trucks. One of the trucks bashed into Percy's buffer and tipped over. A crate fell out and split open. Look, peeped Percy. It's a metal man, a robot. Silly, Cranky grumbled. It's a suit of armor, like a knight used to wear. Cranky's right, said Sir Topham Hatt. In the old days, the island of Sodor was ruled by kings. The most beloved was King Galfred. He lived in Ulfstead Castle and wore a golden crown. The crown disappeared long ago. Sir Topham Hatt said that the ruins of Ulfstead Castle could be seen on the Earl of Sodor's estate. The next morning, Thomas delivered a crate to the Earl's estate. There, he met Millie, the Earl's narrow-gauge engine. If only I had King Galfred's golden crown, the Earl said sadly. Over the next few days, Thomas, James, and Percy made many deliveries to the Earl's estate. Thomas saw his friend Jack the Digger there. I'm helping the Earl restore Ulfstead Castle, Jack puffed. So that's his plan, whistled Thomas. When Thomas, Percy, and James were shunting containers, Thomas saw a flatbed holding a very large crate. The Earl said it was a special delivery for the steamworks. He climbed into Thomas's cab, and the three friends pulled the crate to the steamworks. When they got there, a gantry crane lifted the crate to reveal an old engine named Stephen. His wood was worn, and he had rust holes in his boiler. He hadn't run in years. Surprise! The old engine peaked. Victor said he'd have Stephen fixed up in no time. The Earl told Thomas he had a special job for Stephen, but it's best not to say anything yet. I won't say a word, said Thomas. I promise. Victor worked quickly. Soon, Stephen was good as new. You look really useful again, Thomas peeped. Stephen had told the engines about his early days. I worked so fast, they called me the Rocket, he said. But what job would he do now? As the others rode away to work, Thomas saw that Stephen looked sad. So Thomas broke his promise and told Stephen that the Earl had a special job for him. Stephen was very excited. Thomas, James, and Percy steamed to the Earl's estate. Inside the castle walls, they were amazed to see a giant platform on rails. The Earl called it the Traveler. You three will move the Traveler into place for the men. You must be careful to keep the platform stable. Meanwhile, Stephen wanted to know about his special job, so he rode off to Brindam Docks. There's no work here for an old engine like you, Cranky said. Next, Stephen went to Blue Mountain Quarry. We can always use help, Luke peeped, but the trucks Stephen tried to pull were too heavy. He steamed and strained, but they wouldn't move. When I worked in the mine, the trucks weren't this heavy, said Stephen. Are there any mines around here? Scarloli told him there was an old mine near the castle ruins. I don't think anyone works there now, he said. Stephen found the entrance to the abandoned mine. He sighed. There's no job on this island for me. Nearby, Thomas was working with the troublesome trucks. Suddenly, the trucks slipped loose and roared down the hill, right toward Stephen. Stephen had no choice but to push into the mine. His funnel hit the roof and fell off. Rocks crashed down behind him, sealing up the entrance. Stephen searched for a way out. He crept around dark bends and through empty tunnels, but the tracks just went in circles. The only thing he found was an old wooden crate. Thomas and Percy searched for Stephen. At the entrance to the old mine, Thomas saw something familiar lying on the ground. It was Stephen's funnel. Thomas chuffed away to get Jack the digger. Jack cleared the mine entrance, and Thomas raced in. Stephen! Stephen! He peeped. Stephen heard Thomas, but he was too weak to move or even whistle. Finally, Thomas turned a corner and saw a welcome sight. Thomas pushed Stephen out of the mine. The Earl was there to greet them. I found a big wooden chest in the mine, Stephen said. Wonderful, the Earl exclaimed. But first, we must get you ready for tomorrow. You are an engine with a special job to do. The next day, an excited crowd gathered around Eusted Castle. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, engines and coaches, said the Earl. Let me introduce my special steam engine, Stephen. He and Millie will be happy to show you the grounds. Stephen's new funnel glittered like gold. It reminded Thomas of something. Stephen found something I thought was lost forever, the Earl said. King Golfer's long-lost crown. Thomas realized what Stephen's funnel looked like. A crown. The engines cheered for Stephen. He wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but he was really useful. And today, he was a king. Well, that ends our story. And once again, Thomas the Train did not disappoint. I'm hoping that you agree.
I'm right there with you, little darling. I so agree because Thomas is such a hero for the underdog.
I noticed that too. Whenever Thomas in any of these stories come across an underdog, he takes up the fight for him.
You know I love that. I am a big Thomas fan just for that right there.
I know that's a characteristic that you really like, but I'm going to bring up something that Thomas did in the story that might not go too well with you, and I apologize in advance.
Okay, let me have it.
Okay, this whole thing probably could have been avoided where Stephen didn't have to get somehow, some way pushed into the abandoned mine if Thomas had kept his mouth shut. Remember, the Earl told him that he had a special job for Stephen, and he asked Thomas to keep it to himself. Don't tell Stephen. And he promised.
You're right, but Thomas has such a big heart that when everybody else was going off to do their thing, and poor Stephen was sitting there wondering, well, what's his thing? He's trying to figure out what's his place, and he didn't have anything to give him an idea of what's his place. So Thomas saw that and couldn't help it, and he just told him to make him feel better that there's a special job just for you, and it made him feel good.
And you know what? When I think about it, I can't get over the fact that if Thomas had not said anything to Stephen, he wouldn't have went looking for any information on the special job, which would have probably kept him out of all the trouble. And it caused more problem than what it was worth, in my opinion.
But you know what? Even though there was a lot of problems that happened because of Thomas telling him, let's don't forget one major thing came out of all of it was he found the crown that had been lost for so long. So maybe it was worth it.
Maybe. But I'm a big fan of following directions. Anytime I'm going to put something together, I'm going to look for the directions so that, I've got, a guide. And I'm just a big fan of directions. And if you say something, then you need to do what you say you're going to do. Thomas promised he wouldn't say anything, and he did.
But you know what? I am still his number one fan. I don't care what you say. I just really, really like Thomas.
And I do too. I just want to be sure that my young readers understand that when you follow directions, more times than not, you can avoid a lot of problems. And if you say you're going to do something, you do it. You stand by your word. Your word is your bond. And these are the takeaways that I want my young readers to really get out of this.
Oh, definitely. I think these are great takeaways for the young readers. But, little darling, it has come to that time. I've got to go. So I will see you and everyone in the next episode. Bye!
Well, my young readers, I hope you enjoyed this story. Of course, Triangel and I both enjoyed it. We had our different of opinion of it, but we both enjoyed it. So, until next time, my young readers, I am your little darling narrator out.